It started with a single email, a notification that should have been routine, a business update that normally would have passed unnoticed. But that email carried the first crack in the walls Dylan Wang had carefully built around himself and his empire. It arrived on a rainy Tuesday morning, and by noon, it had changed everything. Shen Yue was sitting in her office across the city, her eyes scanning a different but eerily similar message. The subject line was short and sharp, but the contents read like a storm warning. Her company, her pride and years of sweat and vision, was about to merge with its fiercest rival. That rival was Dylan. She felt the world tilt in the quiet hum of her office, the sound of rain against the glass matching the rising noise in her mind. For years, Dylan and Shen Yue had built parallel empires. He was known for his sharp instinct, his ability to turn opportunities into gold, and his unyielding control over every deal. She was the visionary, the creative storm that drew talent and customers like moths to a flame. Their companies had competed fiercely, bidding for the same contracts, chasing the same clients, and winning in different ways. They were rivals not only in business, but in every whispered conversation at industry galas. So, when this merger was announced, it felt less like a corporate decision and more like an arranged marriage between two people who had spent years avoiding each other's gaze. Dylan stared at the document in front of him, feeling the weight of hidden hands forcing this union. Shen Yue sat in silence, her pen tapping against the desk, wondering how something like this could have happened without her knowledge. The truth began to surface slowly. This was no friendly partnership. It was the result of a series of backroom deals and secret negotiations that neither Dylan nor Shen Yue had been told about until it was already signed. Powerful investors had decided that combining the two companies would create an unstoppable force in the market. But no one had prepared them for the personal cost. Their first meeting as co-leaders was in the boardroom of a neutral building, far from either of their headquarters. The air was heavy, and the long polished table between them seemed more like a battlefield than a workspace. Dylan arrived first, his steps measured, his expression unreadable. Shen Yue entered moments later, her heels clicking against the marble floor, her chin held high. They did not shake hands. They simply sat and stared, each silently calculating the other's intentions. As the meeting progressed, it became clear that the merger was more complicated than either of them had been told. There were hidden clauses, financial traps disguised as opportunities, and power structures that seemed designed to pit them against each other. And then, there was the betrayal neither of them saw coming. 3 days into the merger, Shen Yue found an internal memo that should never have crossed her desk. It detailed a series of strategic moves Dylan's side had made months before the merger was official, moves that directly weakened her company's standing and made the takeover inevitable. The words blurred as she read them, each sentence cutting deeper. She felt a strange mix of anger and disbelief. Was this premeditated, or had Dylan simply been playing the game better than she had? When she confronted him, it was not in the safety of an office, but in the middle of a high-profile product launch event. The lights were bright, cameras flashing, the air filled with polite laughter and champagne glasses clinking. Shen Yue walked straight up to Dylan, her voice calm but her eyes burning. She asked him, without any preamble, if he had known, if he had planned this. The people around them fell into an uneasy silence, their attention caught on the tension between the two leaders. Dylan's answer was measured, almost too controlled. He admitted that he had known the merger was possible, but he insisted that the moves he made were purely strategic, not personal. Yet the faint tightening of his jaw told a different story. Shen Yue turned and walked away, leaving Dylan standing in a circle of confused guests who had no idea what they had just witnessed. In the weeks that followed, the tension grew. Their every meeting was a careful dance, each word measured, each decision laced with unspoken resentment. And yet, something unexpected began to happen. They started to understand each other. Dylan saw the brilliance in Shen Yue's vision, the way she could see market shifts before they happened. Shen Yue began to respect Dylan's relentless focus and the quiet way he built alliances without ever showing his full hand. But just as they were beginning to find common ground, another betrayal surfaced. This time it came from within. A senior executive, loyal to neither of them, had been feeding confidential information to an outside competitor. The leak threatened not only the success of the merger, but the survival of both companies. Dylan and Shen Yue were forced to set aside their history and work together, moving quickly to uncover the mole before the damage became irreversible. Their investigation took them from late-night strategy sessions in dimly lit offices to whispered conversations in crowded restaurants where no one would recognize them. They pieced together fragments of emails, financial discrepancies, and odd patterns in project delays. And one night, in a quiet corner of Shen Yue's office, Dylan found the final piece of evidence. It was a small USB drive hidden behind a stack of reports, its contents revealing a months-long plan to dismantle the merged company from the inside. When they finally confronted the executive, it was in front of the full board. The air was thick with anticipation, every eye on Dylan and Shen Yue as they laid out the evidence. The betrayal was undeniable, and the fallout was immediate. The executive was removed, and the company's future was once again in their hands. But the events had left a mark. The accidental betrayal that had brought them together had also forced them to see the cost of mistrust, the fragility of alliances, and the fine line between rivalry and partnership. They stood side by side at the next shareholder meeting, presenting a united front to the world. Yet beneath the polished smiles and confident voices, there remained an unspoken question between them. Was this truly a new beginning, or just the calm before another storm? The first week after the merger was nothing short of chaos. Shen Yue had walked into the new joint headquarters with her head held high, every step echoing through the long marble hallway as if she were daring someone to stop her. The air felt heavy, the kind of heaviness that made even the most confident employees whisper in hushed tones. On the top floor, Dylan sat behind his glass desk, staring out at the skyline as if the city itself might give him answers. He had not expected to see her again in this way, certainly not as his co-chief executive. The boardroom meetings were sharp and cold. Every suggestion from Shen Yue was met with Dylan's calm but firm counterarguments, and every idea from Dylan was dissected by Shen Yue until it felt like a battlefield disguised as corporate diplomacy. What no one in the room knew was that both of them were carrying secrets that could burn the entire merger to the ground. One late evening, the office was nearly empty. The city lights flickered through the tall windows as Shen Yue stayed behind to review financial documents. She heard a faint click of a door closing and looked up to see Dylan walking in. His tie was loosened, his eyes intense, and for a moment there was silence thick enough to choke on. He set a folder on the table between them. Without a word, she opened it, and her breath caught. Inside were signed contracts from months before the merger, documents that tied her most trusted advisor to a secret deal with Dylan's company. It was an alliance she had never authorized, one that could only mean someone close to her had betrayed her without hesitation. She looked at him, trying to read his face, but his expression was unreadable. "You think this was my doing," he said quietly, his voice low but steady. "I did not plan this. It was meant to be kept from you." "Then why show me now?" she asked, her voice trembling but her gaze locked on his. "Because," he replied, "the people who set this in motion are still inside your circle, and they are playing both sides." The air in the room shifted. Shen Yue closed the folder, her fingers pressing hard against the cover as if she could crush the truth inside. She realized that this was not just a business arrangement anymore, it was a trap designed to pit them against each other while someone else pulled the strings. Over the next few days, their public interactions remained tense, but behind closed doors, a fragile alliance began to form. Late-night strategy sessions became common, each one filled with moments where their eyes lingered too long, where their words carried double meanings neither dared to address. The merger that had started as an accidental betrayal was now becoming something more dangerous, a partnership forged not out of trust, but out of necessity to survive the unseen war closing in on them.